At the beginning of the RLCS 2021-2022 season, there was a general inquiry for myself about what was going to happen with the old guard, the OGs that have been around for a long time, and one in particular has to be Kuxir 97, a obviously longtime vet who's been here since the beginning and has gone through many a different roster iteration between lately Mouse Sports and his own team. So when RLCS 21-22 started and we saw the announcement of Cookster's minions with two younger players that were lesser known, my interest peaked. I was curious about how this team was going to develop. So now that we've had two splits in different iterations, and the newest iteration, not even including Cookster and being renamed to the Pokemaniacs, I figured it'd be interesting to kind of discuss and talk about their history and how they got to their newest transfer, which was announced just yesterday. So let's jump right into it. We got to jump all the way back to the fall split of the season with Swiss into single elim, one of my favorite. And the difficulty with Cookster's minions is we knew it was going to be a different iteration and it was going to take some time to develop, but the roster itself obviously had plenty of talent. I mean, you're talking Cookster, who's a long-term veteran, who's been known to adjust and make the ability to adapt, I guess, mid-series and then kind of punish his opponents for their tendencies. But then you've got a young player named Growly, who is coming from England, and then you've got RXI, who is from Spain. And you saw potential. You saw that there was a lot of cool moments that this team had, but they struggled in the big moments, the ones that were the difference between getting to the next step or not. Although the results aren't there in Regional 1, when we do get into Regional 2, you do see them get through the close qualifier, which is a grueling double elimination bracket that eventually leads into a Swiss stage, and then after that you can finally play in the main event. In Regional 1, they don't qualify. Regional 2 in the close qualifier, they barely miss out. They are one game away from making top 16, and they take losses to Guild, Flying Dutchman, the former Heroic team, and SK Gaming. But they show promise. They show that even though it is a new iteration of roster, over time, they look like they can, I guess, perform at the high level. We then go into Fall Regional 3 in the close qualifier, and again, it looks like they could be in trouble, but they actually end up surprising. It starts off with a rough start against FC Barcelona, but they do take wins over Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, and K-Corp, a team that showed insane results in the We Play Invitational just a few months ago in Ukraine. So, Cookster's minions. All right. 3 times you get a chance, and the third and final time you find yourself in the main event. And in that main event, they actually don't do too bad. They end up showing a pretty solid effort, but again, missing out by one game. And this seems to be the curse of this Cookster's minions team, where, you know what, we're going to get right to that pivotal moment, but when it comes down to the match that matters most, we're going to fall short. And in this case, you know, nothing to shy away from. Their losses come from Dignitas, Endpoint, and Semper, all teams that are top 5, all teams that eventually end up going to the major. So the results, although tough, are the ones that you have to get upsets on. So we don't see the truest form of the team, but they do make a main event. There is promise, and they decide to stick together all throughout winter. And then something miraculous happens, and throughout winter, they do make every main event. They show they are a top 16 team in the region consistently, but the difficulty is once they make that main event, they go 0-3. And then Regional 2 happens, and they go 0-3 again in the main event. And then, finally, we finally see a change in the third and final regional, and they end up going and making it into bracket play. They get out of the group stage. They do play upset to the Misfits Gaming team that looked like they were going to qualify for the major again and fell short. But eventually they do drop to the lower bracket facing an Evil Geniuses team that is on a tear, and they drop out again. So finally, it's been 2 splits, multiple months, probably 4 or 5 months of competition, and Cookster's Minions is finally showing that we can make it into the top 12. We're not just going to go 0-3 and get eliminated. And then as soon as that happens, they talk about how they haven't seen improvement at a quick enough rate and that they're disbanding, that the team is no longer going together. Cookster's going to go his own way. Charlie and RXI are going to stay together and try to find a new third. And that's where it takes us to now. Over the course of this off-season, if you want to call it, during the trade window, you have seen the Cookster Minion team, now Pokemaniacs, try different iterations. It's been Growly, RXI, and a different third. The main way they've been testing this is actually a tournament called the RTBF, and it's a 10,000 euro tournament that has a bunch of qualifiers, 4 in particular, where the top ones join automatically invited teams for the prize pool. It's an off-season event. It's been really cool to see different iterations, but we've seen multiple iterations of just this Pokemaniacs team. They've gone through a bunch of different names, which is why it's hard to, I guess, follow through. The first one is BICHI. I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce that, but it's Growly, RXI, and VK Salient, former of the Team Queso, which then became Vodafone Giants roster. In Qualifier 3, they ended up playing then with Speed, longtime Rix.GG player. And results, although okay, didn't lead to success. We then go to the third and final iteration in Qualifier 4, and they try out with a different player in LAWL, which you guys saw that situation. And if you haven't, go check out the previous videos where LAWL finding out that he's no longer with Guild and everything else. So they try out that, and that qualifier also not the best, but they do make the semifinals this time. And after deliberation, trying to figure out what's going on, they have decided and have announced that they are going with Speed, and they have confirmed that. So you look at Speed's history, and it's a little bit different with the Rix.GG team throughout their entire history, where they played in the qualifiers in Regional 2 of the Fall Split. They didn't qualify. They went 1-3. You then jump to Regional 1 of the Winter Split, where they did well in the closed qualifier. But when it came to the main event, they went 0-3. You then go to Regional 2, where they do not qualify. Then you go to Regional 3, where again, they bounce back and they go 3-1. But then they go 0-3 again. So some similar feelings that Speed has had to go through, where twice, I guess, they've made it to the main event in the Winter Split, but have not been able to get a victory just yet. But this kind of, I guess, goes through the whole process of what it is like to try to find a new player during the offseason. You know, we go our separate ways. We try out different iterations through multiple tournaments. And luckily, there is offseason tournaments for them to be playing in during this trade window. But again, it's a lot of process of elimination, which player feels the best. And then you have to stick with it and try to build upon it. So pretty crazy stuff across the board. Pokemaniacs, the new iteration of Cookster's Minions. If you guys need to follow up on that, you can always check out my roster document that I've posted literally everywhere. I'll try to put it in the description for you as well. But you're talking some pretty crazy results and some pretty different iterations of how the teams have come to be. But ultimately, after trying 3 different iterations, Speed is the one they're going with. So as you can see probably on your screen, Pokemaniacs, still under the @Cookster's Minions Twitter tag, is the roster for the Spring Split, Growly, RXI, and Speed. And they're still looking for an organization. You know, that hopefully this team can figure out what it is, where they can make consistent top 16, as a bunch of other changes are going on in the split. But ultimately, top 16 is the bare minimum. That is what they're looking to do, as we've seen Cookster's Minions, now Pokemaniacs, do that with Cookster. And hopefully they can get some of those wins and continue to get bracket play. The crazy thing about this, though, is there is no group stage anymore. It is just straight up double elimination. If we know anything about the EU region, plenty of depth and plenty of upset potential. So that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy the long form version of how this team came to be. A lot of different steps on how they came to get this full roster. But Pokemaniacs, Speed back with RXI and Growly. Excited to see how it plays out.